Well, Israel's military pounding Gaza as rockets rain down over central Israel now. Incredible images coming there. Israel's prime minister is instructing the military to intensify their assault as troops get ready for possible ground invasion.
Big story there.
We will not tolerate the strikes against our cities and our children. Hamas will pay a high price. We are in an operation. I said already that we must act with a clear head and with patience and determination.
Keep not thou silence, O God. Hold not thy peace, and be not still. For lo, thine enemies make a tumult, and they that hate thee have lifted up the head. They have taken crafty counsel against thy people, and consulted against thy hidden ones. They have said, Come, and let us cut them off from being a nation, that the name of Israel may be no more in remembrance. For they have consulted together with one consent. They are confederate against thee. The tabernacles of Edom, and the Ishmaelites, Moab and the Hagarenes, Gebo and Ammon and Amalek, the Philistines with the inhabitants of Tyre, Asser also has joined them. They opened the children of Lot. Selah. Do unto them as unto the Midianites, as to Sisera, as to Jabin at the brook of Kison, which perished at Endor. They became as dung for the earth. Seek ye the Lord, O ye meek of the earth, which have wrought his judgment. Seek righteousness, seek meekness. It may be ye shall be hid in the day of the Lord's anger. For Gaza shall be forsaken, and Ashkelon a desolation. They shall drive out Ashdod at the noonday, and Ekron shall be rooted up. Woe unto the inhabitants of the sea coast, the nation of the Kerethites. The word of the Lord is against you. O Canaan, the land of the Philistines, I will even destroy thee, that there shall be no inhabitant. And the sea coast shall be dwellings and cottages for shepherds, and folds for flocks. And the coast shall be for the remnant of the house of Judah. They shall be thereupon. In the houses of Ashkelon shall they lie down in the evening. The Lord their God shall visit them, and turn away their captivity.
There is chaos yet again in the Middle East, as shown here. Hamas unleashing dozens of rockets again overnight into Israel, sending these wedding guests running for their lives in the central part of the country. As Israel launches its largest offensive in 2 years against several targets inside the Gaza Strip. Meanwhile, Israeli Defense Forces also releasing a video apparently showing militants trying to invade Israeli territory from the ocean. They were taken out a short time later and did not succeed.
Overnight, Israel launched at least 160 strikes on the Gaza Strip. Middle East on the brink. Hamas responding with just 4 rockets overnight. One of Hamas's rockets, an M302, just like the missile shipment Israel intercepted from Iran 4 months ago, leading Israel's defense force to believe Iran is supplying Hamas with weaponry. On Tuesday, the border between Israel and the Gaza Strip illuminated by the flames of war. Video released by the Israeli military reportedly shows various Hamas militants stealthily emerging from the Mediterranean Sea, guns in hand, ready to attack. The next shot shows Israeli soldiers crouching in wait, firing at their incoming enemies. Targeted rocket attacks then reportedly eliminating the other Hamas militants. 5 in all were killed.
They came to the wrong beach party. They should have stayed on their own side of the fence. They paid dearly for this.
Relentless sirens echoing the battle cries of Hamas and Israel. My own crew and myself running for shelter at the sound of the sirens in western Israel on Tuesday afternoon. Many moments of normalcy cut short. One Jewish wedding in Israel interrupted by air raid sirens. The bride seen crouching in fear at the altar as the ground shakes, then running down the aisle with her wedding guests seeking cover. Even if Hamas pulls back, Israel says it's not backing down.
We're beyond that point now. Hamas are going to pay for the attacks that they're carrying out. It's just unacceptable.
Israel's Iron Dome defense system has intercepted dozens of Hamas's rockets. Meanwhile, craters and rubble dot the landscape where homes and buildings once stood.
Ambassador Dennis Ross, Fox News foreign affairs analyst and a counselor at the Washington Institute for Near East Policy. Mr. Ambassador, thank you for coming back today, and good morning to you. I'm going to talk about the wider region in a moment here, but when you look at all these battles and all these wars over time between the Israelis and the Palestinians, you know one thing is true: the technology gets better with each conflict. And now these rockets are flying further and farther than ever before. The question then becomes, how far is the Prime Minister Netanyahu willing to go to wipe out the threat in Gaza?
You know, it is absolutely the right question to ask. No country in the world would tolerate a country, land next door to it, launching rockets indiscriminately into the country and hitting cities. And obviously the Prime Minister of Israel is under a lot of pressure to take steps that would be definitive. The problem is that it's very easy to get into Gaza. It's not so easy to get out of Gaza. I think that he's clearly sending a message that he's prepared to take very decisive action against Hamas. But by the same token, I think he's reluctant to send Israeli ground forces in a big way into Gaza. Gaza is an area that may have the greatest population density in the world. It is teeming. You have all sorts of warrens. It's a very inhospitable place to carry out any kind of military action. Hamas embeds itself in civilian areas, so the casualties, civilian casualties would be high, and the Israeli casualties would be high. Having said that, it's clear that the mobilization of 40,000 reservists, the buildup of ground forces along the border, the intensification of the airstrikes that the Israelis are carrying out, all of these are designed to send a message to Hamas that if they keep this up, even if Israel is reluctant to go in, they will go in, and in the end, Hamas will be the biggest loser.
It's a remarkable thing, Mr. Ambassador. When you think the story like this would make international news every day, it would be major headlines. But when you scan the region now, whether it's the war in Syria, what's happening in Iraq, what's about to happen in Afghanistan, I mean, it just goes on and on and on. Would this be happening if the rest of the region was not in free fall?
You know, it's a very interesting question. There is no doubt that Hamas today in Gaza is being squeezed by the Egyptians because they're choking off the tunnels, which in the past the Egyptians have not done. No one is paying attention to the Palestinians in the region, and that creates some level of frustration for them. But I think what precipitated this was first the kidnapping of the 3 Israeli teenagers, the murder of the 3 Israeli teenagers, the Israelis holding Hamas operatives for being responsible. That triggered what was the beginning of rockets out of Gaza into Israel, and Hamas, in a sense, trying to show that it would respond to what Israel was doing in the West Bank. I suspect this would be happening regardless of what else is happening in the region, only because you have a very unstable situation that's there. Even if you can restore calm, it's an unsteady calm, and you don't know how long it's going to last. I think one of the Israeli aims right now will be, even if it isn't to go in on the ground, it will be to hit the Hamas infrastructure hard enough from the air that it'll be very difficult for Hamas to rebuild. And because Egypt is choking off the smuggling tunnels, it won't be so easy for Hamas to acquire the materials that they've had up until now, either to get the rockets from the outside or to build them in the laboratories within Gaza.
We can examine our own policy, too. We'll leave that question for another day, but thank you, sir, for coming back today.
This just one of 160 airstrikes by the Israeli military on Gaza overnight and into this morning. The homes of Hamas leaders now being targeted, as well as command centres and rocket launching sites. But this morning, air raid sirens once again in the Israeli city of Tel Aviv, forcing people to run for cover as yet more rockets were fired from Gaza. So far, the attacks here and elsewhere in Israel have caused panic, but not any casualties. In part because the Israelis say they've shot down some of the rockets with their missile defense system. And they're now indicating they want to stop the attacks once and for all.
We tried to de-escalate. Messages were sent. We told Hamas to stop this rocket fire, but they continued. And now we are acting. The Israeli Defense Forces are acting to bring about a situation where the people of Israel no longer have to live in fear.
Already, Israeli tanks have been deployed near the border with Gaza, ready for a ground offensive if the order's given. At the moment, it does seem that Israel is preparing for what could be a long military campaign.
Israel announced the name for this operation. It's calling it Operation Protective Edge. And immediately after that announcement was made, there were 2 airstrikes on Gaza, one down near the Egyptian border and one in central Gaza. Now, our sources in Gaza tell us these are houses probably belonging to militant leaders. And this represents something of a change of tactics. Until now, Israel has been striking areas where missiles were being launched from, or facilities, training facilities and whatnot, belonging to Hamas and other militant groups. So really, these are just the opening salvos. When Israel gives a name to an operation, it means that it's serious. Wolf?
It's not a good sign, clearly.
We know that Israel is not defending itself, it is defending settlements, its main project.
مشروعها الأساسي والاستيطان وبالتالي تدافع عنه. ماذا نسميها في عرف القانون الدولي اللي بتقتل عائلة.
How is it called in international law? It's genocide. The killing of entire families is genocide.
هذه اسمها إبادة جماعية.
ما متاسفانه شاهد تداوم و تشدید تجاوزات و حملات وحشیانه
We are unfortunately witnessing the escalation of savage aggression by the Zionists in recent days against the innocent and defenseless people of Palestine.
زیادی از کودکان و زنان منجر شده است. به خشم و نفرت بیش از
This will lead to further international isolation of the Zionist regime in the eyes of free nations of the world and increase hatred and anger of Muslim nations.
Rockets soaring over Israel, targeting Jerusalem and Tel Aviv, and the Israelis are rocketing back. The Israeli military defending itself, launching major air offensives right now against Hamas and Fatah. This surge of violence sparked by the murders of 3 Israeli teenagers, followed by that one young Palestinian. But while the Israelis made an arrest for the murder of the Palestinian, Hamas has done nothing but praise those who killed the 3 innocent kids, one of which had American citizenship. So why hasn't the White House and the media spoken up about the double standard? Joining us right now, I'll let him loose. Fox News' strategic analyst, Lieutenant Colonel Ralph Peters. Colonel, does it surprise you?
No, not at all. Because being anti-Israel is the postmodern, socially accepted form of anti-Semitism, of old-fashioned Jew hatred. And the global left, to include the American left, just will not give Israel credit for anything. Brian, Israel and the Middle East, I mean, look at the Middle East. Israel is an island of civilization in a sea of barbarism. The only rule of law democracy in the region, the only place where women are treated fairly or educated values. But Israel can't get a break for a number of reasons, not least because Israel's success exploded this myth of the left that, oh, in the Middle East and Africa, you can't get ahead because you're oppressed by the imperial powers.
Yeah.
A handful of Jewish refugees started that state and built a modern, world-class, high-tech economy where even the president is subject to the law. It's amazing in the Middle East, and our president and his administration sympathizes, in my view, sympathizes nakedly with the Palestinians.
And here's an example. Look what Philip Gordon said. He's the administration's Middle East coordinator for the White House. He says, how will Israel remain democratic and Jewish if it attempts to govern the millions of Palestinian Arabs who live on the West Bank? How will, if peace is unwilling to be delineated from the border, end the occupation and allow for Palestinian sovereignty, security, and dignity? He is calling for a return to the 67 borders and is blaming Israel for the attacks they're now under.
Yeah, and if you went back to the 67 borders, they'd want to go back to the 1947 and 48 borders. And if you went back to those borders, they'd want to just wipe all the Jews off the map. I mean, this is not hard to figure out. The fundamental difference here is that Israel wants to live in peace with its neighbors, and its neighbors, with a few exceptions, want to exterminate Israel to wipe it from the map. Yeah. Now, and if Hamas wants the airstrikes on terrorist targets in Gaza to stop, it's easy. Stop firing rockets blindly at Israeli civilians. Look, I'm 100% behind Israel because Israel is a part of our civilization. Yeah. It stands for freedom and decency.
I'm with you, Colonel. And on top of that, we recognize the Hamas Fatah government. That makes no sense to me. Colonel, have a great day. Thanks so much for starting our morning off so well.
Thank you, Brian.
The chief Palestinian negotiator, Saib Erekat, is joining us from the West Bank. He's joining us on the phone right now. Saib, what is the latest? How can this be ended and both sides go back to a ceasefire? What is being done? Because I believe the Palestinian Authority has an opportunity to get involved and tell Hamas, tell the Israelis, in effect, stop it.
Yes, Wolf, that's what's happening. President Abbas just finished a phone call with President Sisi of Egypt, the Emir of Qatar, Ban Ki-moon, the Secretary General of the UN, Nabil Arabi, and he's in touch with Khalid Mash'al of Hamas, and he's in touch with the American administration. I think the only way to begin a de-escalation and de-confliction process for the benefit of both sides is to restore the agreement reached between the two sides in November 2012.
Is there anything the Obama administration, the Secretary of State, or the President can do right now that you want them to do, Saib?
Absolutely. I think they can do a lot in terms of, and I think they are. They are using their offices in order to reach the restoration of the 2012 agreement. We need their offices. We need their influence in many, many countries. And I think we can do it all together. And that's what President Abbas has spoken to Secretary Kerry last night, and he's spoken to many other American officials today, many European officials, and I hope we can succeed.
Indeed, and Khalid Mash'al there was speaking in Doha, and what he'd like what he was effectively rejecting is calls by, or suggestions by Mahmoud Abbas that they return to the terms of November 2012. That was the last ceasefire, and that brought this relative calm, I should say, for about 18 months. Khalid Mash'al basically saying that the terms are different. He said that originally Hamas was responding within a certain range, 40 kilometers north of the Gaza border. Now, of course, the game has changed because of Israel's offensive in Gaza. We understand that in the last 48 hours, nearly 500 positions being targeted by Israeli jets. Khalid Mash'al listing other officials, I should say, from Hamas, listing the demands that they want to see, including the release of several prisoners who have been rearrested after they were released in the so-called Shalit deal, that prisoner exchange for the freeing of the Israeli soldier. This, of course, is a very tense situation, and it looks like Hamas at this point is rejecting any suggestions that they would stop firing first.
To the Middle East now, where the situation in Israel is continuing to be tense and in turmoil as Israel continues to be hit by the terrorist group Hamas. Israeli airstrikes in return hit some Hamas targets in Gaza, and now thousands of Israeli troops are mobilizing along the Gaza border. It's a conflict that so far shows no signs of cooling off. David Lee Miller, live in Jerusalem tonight with the very latest. Hello, David Lee.
Hi, Eric. Cooling off, things are actually heating up. It's a few minutes past 8 o'clock local time. It is now dusk, and militants have fired yet more repeated rounds of rockets from Gaza into Israel. We've seen a barrage of rockets fired. Among the targets, the desert city of Dimona. And the reason, Eric, that is significant, Israel has a nuclear facility in the city of Dimona. Also, it's worth noting that by firing these barrages, many rockets at one time, analysts believe militants are essentially trying to overpower the Israeli missile defense system. And again, this evening, there were more sirens in the city of Tel Aviv. And once again, that missile defense system did its job. Today alone, Eric, more than 60 rockets have been fired. There were, however, no serious injuries. And as this conflict escalates, militants have also increased the rocket range, most recently threatening the outskirts of the city of Haifa. That rocket also shot down. Israeli officials estimate that Hamas has an arsenal of some 10,000 rockets, of which about 350 have the capacity to threaten the central part of the country. Israel's military, meanwhile, continuing to fire back. Among their targets, launchers. Once these rocket launchers are put out of commission, the rockets themselves are essentially useless. The Israeli Air Force has been targeting militants, often going after their homes. Since Israel's offensive began, the Palestinians say at least 38 people have been killed, including 6 children. Israeli officials say in an effort to try and prevent civilian casualties, before firing on a home, they warn residents to evacuate. But in many instances, people simply don't listen. And in some instances, there are reports where people wanted to become human shields. Thousands of Israeli troops at this hour mobilized near the border. A ground invasion remains a very real possibility. Israel's Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu saying the army is ready for all possibilities. So hopes of a negotiated ceasefire at this hour appear very unlikely. One reason for that is the new government in Egypt. You might recall, Eric, in 2012, Egypt helped broker a peace deal between Hamas and Israel. Now there is a new government in Egypt. That government does not have the same good relationship, the same leverage with Hamas leadership, and it is not certain what, if any, role they will be able to play. Meanwhile, as for Hamas, one official there threatening most recently, there is going to be, in his words, an earthquake of escalation. Eric?
You're David Lee, you're right. Hamas can no longer rely on its Muslim Brotherhood president of Egypt, Mohammed Morsi, who was deposed. David Lee Miller, live in Jerusalem today. Thank you.
Well, just under 100 rockets have come in from Gaza over the course of the day, and Israel has not let up at all on its airstrikes of terror targets, as it calls them, within the Gaza Strip. In fact, it says that it's looking to ramp up that operation, not just to stop the flow of rockets, but to really target Hamas and damage its capabilities to send out more rockets. Rocket terrorism, as Israel puts it. This is what Operation Protective Edge looks like as it enters its 3rd day. A Hamas commando unit tries to enter into Israel from the Mediterranean Sea. Stunning new video released by Israeli Defense Forces shows the attempted assault ending in a blaze of gunfire as 5 militants are killed. Dozens of militant rockets have been fired at Israel today, some as far as 140 kilometers over Tel Aviv and beyond. Those threatening civilian populated areas intercepted by the Iron Dome defense system. This wedding ceremony was apparently interrupted by an air raid siren, the bride running down the aisle to seek cover. Israel may launch a ground invasion if the rocket attacks continue, says Shimon Peres, the country's president.
If they will stop, for example, tonight there won't be any ground entrance. But if they'll continue, sooner or later, this will be the response.
The Israelis say they will continue to strike Hamas targets inside Gaza, trying to hit concealed rocket launchers and weapons caches and command centers, they call them, mostly homes, until they have crippled Hamas's capacity to wage, in their words, rocket terrorism. This was the home of a senior Hamas commander, they say. But defiance from the leader of Hamas, who blamed Israel for the escalation.
The Palestinian people will not give in, will not surrender.
Palestinian authorities say dozens of people have been killed since Israeli airstrikes started on Monday, including 8 women and 11 children. Israel maintains that it tries to minimize casualties using telephone warnings and warning shots like this one, which caused people to flee this building. This is not the first time Hamas and Israel have fought, and analysts say previous clashes may have convinced Hamas that it can win, even if it loses.
The problem was, in each case, whatever it lost, it gained back eventually in terms of reputation, rebuilding leaders, getting more outside support in terms of money and arms, and being able to tighten its control over Gaza.
Here in Ashkelon, Wolf, over the last couple of hours, there have been 5 or 6 air raid sirens. People are alarmed just for those few 30 seconds as they wonder whether to take shelter. But then life continues as normal. Let's not forget that throughout this barrage of rockets against Israel, there has been no loss of life, whilst people in Gaza, the Palestinians there, count the death toll by the hour. Wolf.
Let's turn to the Israeli Prime Minister's spokesman for Benjamin Netanyahu. Mark Regev is live with us from Jerusalem this evening. Mark, it's nice to see you. Thank you.
Good to be here.
The concern over here is obviously, what's the bar? This back and forth thing, this is an old movie. We've seen it many times. What is the bar for a ground incursion this time?
Well, as you've reported, Hamas rockets have hit the very center of the country. They've aimed those rockets at our urban population centers in Tel Aviv, at our capital in Jerusalem, and it has to stop. And the truth is, over the last few years, Hamas has succeeded in building in Gaza a formidable terrorist military machine. And as you reported correctly, they've had the help of the Iranians to have these medium and longer range missiles. So we are acting today, the Israeli Defense Forces are working at this moment to dismantle that formidable military machine. Now, if it requires a land incursion, I don't know yet, but we're ready to do whatever it takes to protect our people.
Are the troops at the border, are they in formation, are they ready, or how would you describe this readiness on behalf of the troops?
Well, we've called up Army reservists and we've redeployed forces very close to the Gaza frontier. They are ready to move when the order is given.
Mark, anybody who's followed this region for a time knows that this is part of a pattern, one that you could pretty much expect. There's a strike, there's a back and forth. You knock out the rockets, you kill some people, it calms down, and then it happens again. So here we are again in what appears to be a continuing cycle. Is there a thought about how to break this cycle so that every few years Hamas doesn't come across the border and kill some people, and Israel fires, and away we go again?
You know, I wish there was an easy solution that I could share with you, but when you're dealing with these Islamic extremists, you've got to fight them and you've got to defeat them. I mean, ultimately, Hamas belongs to that same family of radical militant Islamic groups like Boko Haram in Nigeria and ISIS in Iraq and Hezbollah in Lebanon. These are extremist groups. These are brutal groups. These groups have no qualms whatsoever about targeting innocent civilians. They don't even care about the Palestinian people if it allows them to advance their crazy radical theology.
The facts show they are extremists, they are brutal. In this case, they're also part of the government, as most of our viewers know.
Listen, some people say to Israel, Shepherd, that, you guys just don't get it. Just take down all the settlements and pull back to the 1967 lines and everything will be wonderful, you'll get peace. I wish it was that simple. In Gaza, that's exactly what we did under Ariel Sharon, you'll recall. Yep. We took down all the settlements out of Gaza. We pulled back to the recognized international frontier, and what did we get? We didn't get peace. We got Hamas taking over the Gaza Strip, and we've had thousands of rockets fired from Gaza on our civilians because these radical extremists don't recognize the Jewish state in any border. And that's the truth. We want to engage with a Palestinian leadership that's moderate. We want peace, but Hamas is definitely not that leadership.
Before we go, and I don't have much time, what is your level of concern, Mark, that this time this could escalate? That there could be a series of events which could make this spread beyond Israel and the Gaza, that this could become something much, much, much more difficult to contain?
Well, this could get worse. This could escalate. I'm confident that we have the ability to protect the Israeli public. We've spent billions of dollars in homeland defense, in beefing up security, and of course in creating this missile defense system, Iron Dome, which has been very effective. And I'd like to take this opportunity to thank the American people, to thank your government, to thank your Congress. It's a joint venture and it works. It shoots down those incoming missiles. So if I look at the situation now, I wouldn't want to be in Hamas's shoes. We want now to dismantle Hamas's military structure. We want to reassert Israeli deterrence. We want to bring about a long period of quiet, a period of quiet where the people of Israel don't have to live in fear of an incoming rocket fired by the terrorists in Gaza.
Mark Regev, the spokesman for the Israeli Prime Minister. Mark, as always, good to see you and thank you.